All right, welcome back. In this lesson, I want to talk a little bit about vibrato on the fretting hand. Now, for this lesson and the next few lessons, we'll talk about something that can sort of apply to lead guitar playing, but I think it's really important for fingerstyle players to start thinking in terms of what some lead players will approach vibrato. And the reason why, when you have single note lines that you will have in various fingerstyle songs, as well as just picking out a melody within chords. The cool thing about fingerstyle is it is usually in a solo setting, right? But that allows you, with different vibrato styles, to sort of bring an expressive quality and really help the melody sing. So instead of playing a standard line, right, just adding, okay? Just something subtle like that can really help it come alive. It's not just the fret position. It's not just arriving with your left and your right hand, your picking hand or your fretting hand at the same note at the same time. It's also just adding that extra color. And I think that's something that is kind of overlooked, but it's so important for the fretting hand to know what's going on there. So we're going to dive into that now. This is going to be a little bit different on an electric guitar, obviously, because the strings are thinner. It's a lighter gauge, and so it's very easy to sort of bend these strings all out of, on acoustic it's a little bit more difficult, and you have to be more subtle. When there's not overdrive involved and reverb and delay and lots of these other effects, I sort of think about doing vibrato almost like a human voice does. And when I hear a really, really great singer, they'll play a note, they sing a note, and then as the note is decaying, you can hear a little bit more of the vibrato, and then as it's almost decayed, it gets more and more. So for example, right? As opposed to just right off the bat when it comes to, again, the reverb and delay and all of that. So those little subtle details, I think, can add an extra spark to your playing. But understanding what the different vibrato options are can give you different options per scenario. So the first one in the rock vibrato is actually moving the string itself, okay? And the first way that you're moving the string, it's most common that you have kind of 3 fingers in a row. I always kind of picture if we're gonna do a vibrato on this string right here, this is the main character right here, and these are just sort of the supporting. They're giving a little bit more strength to when you're going back and forth on this. This is the same principle that will happen in string bending, which we'll talk about in a lesson coming up as well. But for right now, you want to think about actually moving the string back and forth. Okay? And what I'm doing is, instead of thinking in terms of, we'll talk about like the B.B. King style vibrato, which is more of like a hinge. This is actually kind of just taking and you're almost shaking the entire hand there. Right? Sometimes I've seen it explained before where you actually almost think about going in a circle. You're kind of going up, down, So you're bringing the string up, bringing the string down, like that. And you can do subtle variations like that, but I think what is most important is to just think, okay, I'm actually just shaking the string back and forth. Okay? And you'll notice sometimes if you have any rusty frets, you'll hear a little bit of a grind on that, so just be careful. Sometimes I'll just actually, this is kind of a combination of another vibrato that we'll do in a lesson coming up. You can take the B.B. King style and the rock guitar style and blend them together. So just know that each of these are not just individually. You can actually mix and match all of these different techniques. So for example, I'm going to go. Just to get the feeling of that, and then. Okay? Now, the classical style, so that's the rock style. The classical style is a little bit different because you're not actually shaking the string this way. You're actually putting your finger down and pivoting back and forth that way. It's a subtle difference, but it does make a difference depending on what music situation you're in. So the rock, whereas classical, And you'll notice it really, it tends to come out much more aggressively on a nylon string guitar. So be aware of that. With steel string, it's not as much, but it's still a subtle thing that you want to get used to doing. So if we played those same notes that we did, and now instead of putting the rock vibrato in, we put this classical style, you have... and then the rock style. So in getting comfortable with the difference between the two, I usually recommend sometimes practicing this with your eyes closed. You shut down one of your senses and your ear becomes a whole lot more aware and sensitive to the nuances of what's happening, but also the feel. Most of every player has their kind of own approach when it comes to vibrato, and so that's a very personal thing. You know, each one will have their kind of your feel, your sense, your flavor. How you do that vibrato may be subtly different than another player, and finding the what it feels like to be most natural for your vibrato, it takes sometimes just closing your eyes and just really feeling that out. All right, so now that we've gone through the mechanics of what's happening with those two different vibratos, what we want to do is head into the practice session. And what we're going to do here is we're going to play a line, and we're going to play that with the rock style vibrato, and we're going to play the identical line with the classical style vibrato right after, one after another. So the rock style first, then we're going to repeat the lick, and we're going to play the classical style next. So I will see you in the practice session.